Thanks for clicking through to Chamber Chat. These are one-on-one interviews with business and political leaders in our community, and today, always in our community, but here at the Chamber offices is the Minister of State for FedDev, Gary Goodyear. Gary.
Greg, nice to be here.
It's always wonderful to have you here.
It's always fun.
Love to have a chat. We chat too much off camera.
Yeah,
and
I appreciate that, by the way. No, I'm serious. When I do email you, you respond very fast and usually overly detailed, but it does help.
I always like to get my opinion in.
Yeah, but when
Not
I
just
say
the answer to
a
your
couple of
question.
paragraphs, 3 pages, 4 pages is kind of overdoing it, but I get the point. No,
I know.
I'm serious. I do appreciate the advice and you jumping on the email or texting me as the case was just recently. I appreciate that. It helps.
Well,
me make
I
decisions.
appreciate the fact of having, the ability to text you quickly and get a quick answer as well. And your staff, of course, here in Cambridge, as well as in Ottawa, are just fantastic staff. And it makes really though, I really want to say that it makes me feel more important than I really am, because they treat me
and that's
so
what we're
well.
trying to do.
Oh, really? To make me feel more important?
Well, we hear bad things, and so we're trying to build you up. No, I'm just kidding. No, we appreciate that. I have that two-way sort of thing with a lot of folks, and it's nice. Obviously, the mayor, and it's nice to actually reach out when you're in Ottawa and you're hearing some conversation taking place. It's nice to reach out really quickly and say, "What do you think about this? This is what's happening in Ottawa." Get some opinions on it. It helps me make those decisions for the community based on what the community wants.
I think you're one of the few, too, that you'd never really know whether you're in Ottawa or in Cambridge, because you respond so quickly and you're on things.
It's called technology.
Yeah, right? and thank goodness for technology, because it's made everybody's life a little bit easier. But I know certainly from your perspective, you're very cognizant on making sure you get back to people's questions as quickly as possible. And you've hired some great staff. We just love your staff, so I hope you do. So, Gary, you're in charge of probably, certainly from Cambridge's perspective, Southern Ontario's most important ministry, the ministry that actually, I think, really shines a light on business and commerce in southwestern Ontario for sure. But FedDev has been your baby right from the very beginning.
Yep, designed it.
You've stuck with
bought
it.
the carpets, and I think I was even plugging in the computers back in the day.
And largely, I think, manufacturers say, "Oh yeah, I've heard about it, and maybe I'm going to get involved, maybe I'm not going to get involved." Let's talk a little bit about the benefits that we've seen from FedDev just in our area, our catchment area of Southern Ontario.
Well, first of all, since the creation of FedDev, we had a 5-year mandate. We actually did get some additional funding because the agency is so efficient. Other departments have actually asked us to manage certain aspects of their funding. So the first 5 years, Greg, we put over $1.2 billion into the economy of Southern Ontario in about 5,300 different partnerships and projects, who, by the way, went on to leverage an additional $1.5 billion of almost entirely non-government funding. So added together, that's a huge economic impact. Some of it is to help communities, not-for-profits like cities and municipalities. Some of it, of course, went to colleges. I just made a great announcement at Conestoga, another one down at Fanshawe to help the manufacturing sector. And some of it goes to businesses to either protect jobs or to help them expand and create new jobs. East Centire is a really good example where we lent them money, because we lend the money. They have to pay the
Well, I think that's an important part that a lot of people don't understand. I think the government has always taken some criticism, and they talk about this corporate welfare thing. This is not a corporate welfare program.
No, and if these folks, in a tough economic time, you sometimes just cannot get funding from the bank. And so that's the whole point. If they can get money from the bank or another source, we're not at the table. So businesses come to us, hundreds of them. Here in Cambridge, we've had dozens come to us. They're all vetted. There's due diligence done. Is it a legitimate situation, et cetera? Can they get money from somewhere else or no? If they don't get the money, what would happen? In many cases, it's either shut down or consolidate a little bit and lose jobs, and that's the Prime Minister's concern. We cannot lose jobs, even though the world, certainly in the beginning, was at the worst recession since the Great Depression. So we've been able to find those projects. We go around on my break weeks. I'm in some city. This week I'm in 4 different cities. And we talk to mayors and chambers and business owners. We have round tables. We listen to what's necessary. We talk about our programs and try to stimulate the innovative, creative minds of businesses. They apply to expand. One of the common questions I ask business owners is your expansion plans over the next 5 years, or expansion plans that you've put on hold because of the recession. What would it take to get them started now? What could we do to move 5-year plan into 2 years or 1? Or what could we do to make you do your expansion plans now that you thought you should delay? And a lot of times that starts the thinking, and then we get all these great ideas. And East Entire, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, we lent them less than $1 million. They're paying the money back. They went from a couple of dozen employees to way over 100. And I could tell you stories like that every day. We just put a product validation center in at Fanshawe College.
This is interesting.
Well, one of the things when I was Minister of Science, one of the things we knew was that we had a great source of bright people at our post-secondary colleges, universities. Plus, we spend billions of dollars on equipment for college research, university research, both applied and basic research. The average business in Canada, 95% of the businesses in Canada have less than 50 employees. So they don't have research equipment, they don't have PhDs, they don't have microscopes.
Yep.
They sometimes don't even have places where they can solve a problem with the widget. So I started 6 years ago trying to partner colleges and universities with the business sector, with the private sector. And, step ahead 3, 4, 5 years, we now have hundreds of businesses are now going to colleges, partnering with them. Conestoga College, the Institute of Food Technology. The whole genesis of that entire building was to help the food and beverage industry take a leap forward and become far more competitive and far more innovative, and be something that could grow. 2,600 factories in Southern Ontario, they all stand a chance of growing, but they have to do certain things. Those that take advantage of these federal programs will probably win and do well. Those that don't,
I think that's a big problem with some companies. And we have some. We actually have a company. One of our board members is the general manager of this small manufacturer. They partner with University of Waterloo because they have to.
Yeah.
Why? Yeah. Because they first of all, they can't sit there all day doing research and development. They've got to pump out the stuff that puts cash into the drawer right
at the end of the day. That's what has to happen.
Yeah, and so they have an incredible partnership they've had for a few years with the University of Waterloo, and it's been able to advance them along. They do a lot of plastics, and they're working now with the recyclable plastics and the bio plastics. So, and they're working with the University of Waterloo. It's just exciting stuff.
So this goes on and on, because we have manufacturers who are using the same material they used 5 years ago. Yet, the federal government's funding research on new composite materials that may be stronger and lighter and less expensive. So how do we get that knowledge out of our universities and colleges, out of our research facilities that your federal taxes have actually paid for, into our manufacturing or our business community, so they can actually compete with folks like Germany and France and et cetera. Now, Germany and France, they've been doing this forever. Germany's extremely good at connecting the dots. Basic research, something's discovered, and even if it's not what you wanted to discover, that isn't put on the shelf. It's moved through the process until they find some economic advantage to that discovery. We're getting much better at it. 10 years ago, we didn't do hardly any of this. Today, I would say that just about every university and college is aware of the opportunities of partnering with business. The opposite isn't quite true. Businesses still don't, in my view, know that they can partner with colleges and universities and get a lot of their problems solved.
Well, and we have Conestoga College's
fantastic,
phenomenal organization in our community. Not just educating people and that upgrading their skills, but it has that research and development capability as well.
We had a program, one of the times I was on the road listening to people and their concerns and what they thought they might need to do better. This was a few years ago. And one of them was this disconnect between colleges and businesses. And businesses needed solutions to problems that they didn't have the resources to do. So I actually created a program. It was called the program that I created was designed to put applied research at our colleges into the commercialization space. So we called it the ARC program, Applied Research Commercialization. And all I did, seriously, was I said to the colleges and universities, here is $15 million, but you can't have it unless you go off campus, find a business with a problem, and solve the problem.
Oh, wow.
And the businesses would have to pay half as a pilot.
Yeah.
Man, it was so successful. We had a company in Cambridge who had a suitcase. And it's so light, it's so well made and light that it wobbled when it rolled down the airport. They couldn't figure out how to do it. They gave it to Conestoga College engineering students. And Conestoga College was good enough to put 4 kids on it. Solve this problem, forget class for a while.
Yeah.
Here's the education. They solved it. It was the riveting pattern, as I understand. Solved the problem, cost $15,000. That company has tripled in size as a result, and they hired 2 of the students. I mean, that's the connectivity of partnerships. And the
Absolutely.
possibility. And those are happening by the hundreds.
But those are the things that are really hard to, you know, you don't see them in the newspaper every day because they creep along and,
That's right.
You know, and then they're there. And they add 2 or 3 or 5 jobs a month and you just don't see them.
You don't
They don't
really
make
see
the
it.
headlines, you know.
Yeah, you don't
It's
really
the
see it.
closure of 300 that, you know, and in reality, when you look at, you know, research, BlackBerry, for example, had tremendous problems back in 2008,
They did.
2009.
Yeah.
Thousands of employees let go, and yet,
Didn't hear about it until recently.
yeah, they're all starting to find their way, and new businesses
They
have
are.
started up, and they're somewhere else, and
Yeah.
you know, the big fallout of, oh my goodness, this huge employer is having trouble, hasn't had much of an impact, and I think it's because of a lot of these research and development things that are happening at the post-secondary institutions that are bringing new jobs on stream.
So we've recognized that too at FedDev, at my agency. So we've actually developed programs that look for folks with new ideas. We analyze the ideas, we look to see if venture capitalists or angel investors are interested. If they are interested in it, then we will show some interest. And where would they set up and how many jobs would they create? What kind of jobs are they? When FedDev first started, you know, in fairness, I was just looking to save jobs and get somebody a job. So we were doing paving of streets and streetscaping and, you know, et cetera. But as the economy started to change, we looked for the better quality jobs. So if we were going to pave anything, it would be a runway at an airport because there's long-term economics with that. Today, we don't do any of that. Today, it's all about the higher quality, knowledge-based, highly technical, high-paying jobs. Now, you mentioned BlackBerry. Interesting statistic. Last year, our area had an unemployment rate of about 6.6%. Do you know what it was in February of this year? 5.1%.
That's getting dangerously low.
It is, in fact,
Yep.
because now what do we hear from businesses? I've got this opportunity, I need 35 people, I can't find
Well,
them.
you know, I'm calling you all the time. on
All
that
the
one.
time, I know, and you're not wrong. So what we're seeing now is, and this is why we've come up with skills training programs and grants to upskill and modify the training of individuals. Even if they already have a job, we can help them train for a different job. Because what we're seeing is a lot of bright people don't have jobs. A lot of bright people. But the skills that they have are not exactly what this employer wants. So we need somebody to match the skills. And the federal government will continue to do that. We have to do a lot more of it, a lot more of it. And we'll continue to do it until the post-secondary educational institutions catch up with matching what they train their kids in 4th year and 3rd year with what the actual private sector needs. And that is always a moving target.
Yeah, it always is. And I think, you know, you look at progressive and aggressive colleges like Conestoga, you know, they have their ears to the ground
They
and their
do.
eyes in the community.
Dr.
and they-
Tibbetts is unbelievable.
Yeah, and his whole staff. They're always
Yep.
looking at what the new needs are, and as you well know, because Dr. Tibbetts has a lot of meetings with you too, he's
All
always
the
talking
time.
about
Yep.
what he needs next.
And that's good.
I think it's critically important because we have to look to that future. We know that doing the same old all the time isn't going to work in an age of technology transformation like we see now.
That's right.
you know.
We're in a technological revolution. People will admit that 10 years from now. The industrial revolution is kind of over. It's the technological revolution
Yep.
that we see now. And so you know, when I used to work at Schneider's, we'd have 40 people actually cutting meat at the table,
Yeah.
right? Today, it's not like that at all.
No.
It's X-ray machines and metal detectors and computerized hydraulics and weighing machine. Heck, the meat goes out the end with the grill marks on it. It's spiced up properly, and it even has the Loblaw's name on it or Sobeys name on it, right? So, but the folks that are running those X-ray detectors and those fixing those computerized weighing machines, they're all making a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
So we are seeing in manufacturing this transition,
Yep.
and we have to see it. If we have places like Heinz that does not upgrade their equipment, they are going to find themselves inefficient and not competitive. And that's a bad news story. So we look at FedDev, we look for people who are facing that probable consequence, and we actually send officials there and say, can we do something to help you become more competitive and efficient? And it's working, Greg. Manufacturing, we hear so much about the lost jobs in manufacturing. But from the time where we came along and helped the automotive industry, literally saving hundreds of thousands of jobs, through to the Automotive Innovation Fund, through to the fund that I run, the Advanced Manufacturing Fund, to reducing corporate tax rates, to the accelerated capital cost allowance that allows people to write their equipment off. We are seeing positive trends in manufacturing. I mean, January, there was over 10,000 people hired in manufacturing alone. Manufacturing's up 41% since 2008.
Well, I'll give you an example. My
It's all
members are
working.
saying, you give me the people and I'll hire them.
That's the
You
problem
know, there's
we're
no
facing now.
question about it. And I think I'm actually heading out to Alberta, and I'm talking to the oil industry out there. And this is probably a great time because it's the only time you'll be able to get them where things are a little slower. But they want to talk to us in Ontario about how we can support them from a manufacturing perspective because they just
And
can't
we
get
can.
the job done out there.
And we can do it here. We've got the infrastructure, we have the plants, we've got the skills. On the folks that need jobs, that or the businesses that need certain skill sets and employees, we are working very hard to look at what's available on the market and what it would take to change the skill set, or I call it upskilling, to provide somebody who already has a significant skill set but needs a little bit more to meet this job demand. And we're doing it with every age group, including veterans. So, in fact, just recently we were able to announce a significant amount of support for Argus House, who works with troubled young kids who actually want to go back to school to get different skill sets or go work somewhere to get the skill sets and the experience. So we're working with just about every group we can. And I think that that's a challenge that we're facing, and we need to do a lot more work on it. But we're getting there. The
Yeah,
economy
I
is
think so.
chugging along pretty good.
I think to some degree, people, thought manufacturing was going to go away and eventually disappear. It's not. It's just going to change.
Listen, we heard some high-profile people said we should transition manufacturing out of Ontario, and I'm certainly sure he didn't quite mean that.
No.
Because that's 1.5 million jobs
Yeah,
gone.
yeah.
But no, you don't transition it out. They have to become more efficient.
Yeah.
They have to reduce their input costs where they can. Now, input complaints that I hear is the cost of electricity in Ontario. It's huge.
Well,
it's not federal, right? So we can't help you
You
with
don't
that.
have to be a
Sorry.
manufacturer to complain about hydro
True
costs in
enough.
Ontario.
True enough. But when we look at things like I said, the cost of solving problems, well, we'll partner you up with a college or a university group that will help you do that. This particular material I'm using is far too heavy. It's unworkable. The customer wants something lighter, thinner, whatever it is. Well, guess what? We have a materials composite laboratory down here at Western. We have the MARC Center, the McMaster Automotive Research Center. It's probably the largest electromotive power research facility in the world. And so we're starting to see manufacturers getting it, that they have to buy a little bit more efficient piece of equipment so that their costs go down. Produces things a little bit more quickly in the lab, on the plant floor. We're even funding some companies who can take a 3D picture of your entire space and tell you, listen, you need to move this equipment over here and that one over here and put that one over there, and you'll end up with another 10,000 square feet, so you can expand without costing you a cent. So those are the types of innovative things that FedDev actually looks for now. And when we find them, or when I'm on the road, people get the idea to apply, we actually look for those types of things that have not just the creation of 15 jobs for a loan of $200,000. No, we're looking at the impact, the long-term impact on the community. So it might be jobs at the plant, but it might be that they have more output. They might reach a new market around the world. And how do we do that? How do we educate them to sell that product to another 5 countries? So that's what FedDev is doing. We don't just lend out money. We actually create partnerships. We point people in the right directions. We'll actually go in there and try to help them to figure out what they
I think
need
it's a
to
great agency. I've heard nothing but great comments from those who have
Well, thank you.
participated in the programs, and you know, and we've seen, you know, some of our members have taken advantage of it, and we've seen some really
That's good.
exciting things
that's
come out of it as well.
And we get our money paid back.
Well,
See?
how could
So
it be
that's
any better than
That's
that?
how we can keep
You know?
taxes low.
And you know, I
keep
think that's
doing it.
important, because the whole objective is to keep churning it through the mill.
That's
And,
exactly right.
You know, you pay it back, and somebody else gets it. And,
Yeah. You got 15 more people employed, having a better quality of life, and paying what little federal tax they pay federal tax, right? So yeah, it's a concept the Prime Minister is pretty astounded on. Of course, you've heard me say it politically many times. We lower taxes and keep the economy running. We're going to balance the budget, keep the economy running. It isn't about raising taxes so the government has more money. That's not the way you do it. You get the economy going, money churns through the economy, and frankly, every time a dollar changes hands, the federal government gets their taxes on it. So
exactly.
you just keep the economy going, and frankly, this is what we've been doing, and it actually is working better. I read a statistic the other day, better than most countries. Our net debt to GDP ratio, you would know what that is, right?
Yeah, so well, I know what it was.
Well, it's up because of the
Yes.
recession, 39%. The next best one in the G7 is Germany at 59%. The average for the G7, 85%.
I know. We were
We
close
are
to 50.
Yeah,
At
yeah,
the
but we
peak.
were actually close to about 32 at one point.
yeah.
So we're doing
And our
extremely
fight has
well.
always been to get it down to about 20 to 25.
And I would love to see it.
Yeah, because I think I think the Prime Minister, that's one of his
He
big
is-
deals too.
yeah,
Because
dedicated.
he's an economist and he understands, but you get too much lower than that, and then it starts to be a real problem where you have double-digit inflation and all kinds of things.
Exactly,
Crazy.
and this is what a lot of people don't understand. The balance on these things is very fine.
Yeah,
It's
very
fine. But 39%, we're still the best in the G7. Our economy is better than most countries around the world, but we're still facing challenges. China's economy is slowing down.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons the American economy is picking up. The American dollar goes up. It kind of helps our manufacturers so they don't feel the incentive to continue to fight to survive, because they've got the buffer on the lower Canadian dollar.
But we have to tell them not to sit back.
No, that's what I want you to tell them. Don't sit back. This is when you actually buy that new equipment.
I'm telling everyone, don't plan any long road trips this summer, because you never know what the price of oil is going to be, because OPEC's not making any money either.
No.
Nobody's
So-
making any money at the cost of oil today.
So we look out 6 months, 2 years, and we actually still see instability and unpredictability. And so this is exactly why we are so razor focused on the economic metrics that we're seeing today. Our policies for the last 6 years, 7 years have worked quite well. I don't think anybody would disagree. But we still have this uncertainty that one little wrong move, and I think you'll see an imbalance that will cost people jobs and hurt Canadians.
Well,
and that's not what
we've been on the
ever
balance
want.
beam since 2008, you know.
That's a nice way to
And but I think we've been more balanced than everyone else.
Yeah,
and
we're doing well. But I don't want people to think that it's all done.
Oh no.
We,
I think
there's
that's
still
important too.
There's still instability. Look at Greece 2 weeks ago. I
Yeah.
mean, my goodness, you know, they just got another extension on their debt. Those types of things have to be settled,
Yeah.
and I don't know when that will happen. In the meantime, we have to make sure that Canadians' quality of life and their jobs are protected, and they get to do what it is they need to do
Yeah.
with their families to enjoy the hard work that we all do.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned it earlier, so I have to ask you. I'm really excited about seeing this new budget.
What budget?
Well, this is supposed to be a balanced budget.
It will be a
The
balanced
oil's in the toilet. You
I don't
we're-
know what that means.
Well, the revenues from oil are down.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's
yes.
going to pose, you know, we've all heard those rumors. Actually, you know, your former colleague out in Alberta, who's trying to run that province, Mr. Prentice, is having a real difficult time.
So you wouldn't be surprised if I told you that we already factored in a very low price per barrel. Like we weren't thinking.
Only if you were a magician, I believe.
Well, we did. We actually factored in a low price for oil, so in our projections on the budget, and so I can tell you that we will have a balanced budget, and the budget will be within the next few weeks. And you'll see that. We'll continue to lower taxes. We just announced the biggest tax reduction for the family tax credit. It's unbelievable. The average family of 4 in Cambridge now has an additional $120 a week in their pocket because of all the tax reductions we've done.
I'm gonna go out and spend that. I'm not gonna listen to my
$120.
wife about saving it.
I'm going to phone her later so that you at least come home with something nice for her. But, you know, that's exactly why, you know, people have another $120 in their bank accounts, and they can spend that. Of course they can spend that on food, but they can spend it on the luxuries that they want, whether it's a summer trip or, you know, a season's ticket to Dunfield Theatre or whatever it is that improves the quality of life, education, you know, whatever it is that they think improves their outcome. And that, by the way, is exactly what we want you to do, right? We want you to get out
Sure.
there and purchase those things. Hopefully, you know, as many of them as possible are made in Canada and benefit folks in Canada. And there you go. The government gets its revenues. Your taxes are the lowest they've been since, frankly, before you were born, and I know that was a long time ago. So, no, but seriously.
You would know that because you probably remember, but.
Well, I wasn't there. But somebody told me.
Oh, yeah,
about
yeah,
that.
yeah.
No, the point is that the overall federal tax rate right now is lower than it was during Diefenbaker's era, and we're very
Wow.
proud of that.
Yeah.
And I think the reason I keep repeating it isn't just because it's about low taxes. For me, one of the reasons I got into politics was I felt we were paying far too much in tax, and it wasn't being spent properly. So we have reduced government spending in Ottawa by about $19 billion. That's a significant amount of money. We're now having the gas tax come right here to Cambridge, so the mayor and his team has good use of that. That's about $17 million so far. So that takes pressure off of
Yep.
property tax. A couple of years ago, I ran the Knowledge Infrastructure Program. It's a $2 billion federal fund, went into universities and colleges, which, guess what? Takes the pressure off a tuition fee hike. So the federal government's looking at every place that it can do to help every Canadian, whether they're youth or whether they're seniors, whether they're farmers, whether they're business owners. And the net result is that people are paying the lowest tax, and businesses too. The corporate tax rate now is at 15%. That's the lowest in North America. So we have a lot of good things going for us.
Yeah.
And but as I say, the world we play in is not quite as stable as Canada is. So we're going to have to continue to watch. We have folks that want to work who aren't. We have folks that are working that want a different job. They want to do something different, what they deem to be better. And so we need to help those people, young people, people in midlife, old people like yourself.
Yeah. I'm always looking for a good job.
You might want to start looking for one that causes you to work a little bit.
I love
So you
my
feel
job.
good when you
I
go
love
home.
my job.
You got to feel
Sometimes my wife says I love my job too much, but
good. Yeah.
But
You're good at your
you get the exact same thing, because I know your wife, and I've talked to her. She thinks you love your job too much.
How is
too.
she doing, by the way?
She's doing
I haven't
wonderfully.
seen her in so
Val is
long.
just absolutely tremendous.
Yeah, she's a doll.
And
she's very supportive, yeah.
And she sends her best wishes.
Thank you. Fair enough. I just saw my wife this morning. It's all okay.
So you mentioned the budget, probably sometime in April, maybe. I think that was the finance minister's plan anyway, to have it out sometime in April.
Correct.
You still forecast a fall election, because the prime minister could call it at any time. But do you still see it as a fall election?
I do. I don't see there's a reason. I mean, I wouldn't say 100% because things can change. The world's a very, there's lots of things happening in the world right now that the Prime Minister might think that he needs to go to the people about, but I do not see that happening.
Yeah.
We set the election to remove a prime ministerial advantage.
Yeah.
And we saw that with past governments. They'd pick the election date whenever they thought they'd be doing things and be higher in the polls. We thought that was not absolutely fair democracy. So we set a fixed election date, October 15th, 2015.
Yeah.
And I'd be betting my money that that's still the election date.
Yeah, you know what, I think it makes sense municipally. We all know.
Everybody
Comes
knows.
up on a certain date,
Everybody
and
knows.
you kind of accept it. I know
Yeah.
in federal and provincial politics, if you got a minority government, it maybe makes
Different.
it a little
That's
bit of a
always
problem,
different
but,
because the government can fall at any time, but we don't. We have a
Yeah.
majority government. We're doing extremely well, I think, as a result of that stability, and I think the election date is pretty set firm for October 15th.
Well, thanks for coming in. I
Always a
appreciate
pleasure.
that. I know it is.
I like our casual conversations.
I know.
Not
Well, we're
sort of
casual guys.
subject specific.
I think a lot of people don't know. We've known each other for a long, long time before Gary Goodyear was even a member of Parliament.
Oh,
So,
that's true. Yeah. Well, I can't tell people that you were a patient of
No.
mine, but, and
Oh, yes, I'm sure.
that's back when I
hope-
ran the psychology.
Yes, I was
clinic,
just
but,
going to say, is that the sanatorium you're talking about?
No, we've known each other a long time,
Yes.
and I actually do remember coming here a number of times, long before I was in politics, and seeing what was happening with the chamber.
Yeah.
When I ran my own small business and
Exactly.
suffered all those things that small businesses
Yeah.
suffer and the challenges that you have to overcome. So
Well, it's tough, and I know you understand it, and I know you certainly. I know. Trust me, I've buzzed this
Thanks.
guy at all hours of the day,
that's actually true.
and I certainly know that you.
And
you
I
go to
answer
bat.
it because I never know if it's the PM or
I
my
know.
chief of staff, and 90% of the time it's Greg.
Yeah, sometimes he doesn't know whether I'm
I don't
teasing
act-
with him or I'm really mad.
Sometimes, no. Sometimes I think you don't actually know what time it is. Like you work
I
late,
don't.
like I do, and so you kind of come up with an idea. You start typing it away. You hit send before you realize it's
Yeah.
2 in the morning.
Well, exactly, and you're
I-
just thinking, I got caught in the moment. I better let him know right now.
That's right.
And then what I really feel bad about is lots of times I get a response right away. So I'm not sure whether I've woken you up or whether I've.
We run pretty late hours.
Yeah.
It's pretty late, but it's fun. It's all fun, and as I say, as long as we're doing a good job, I believe we are, then it'll continue to be worth doing.
Well, it's always great to see you, and thanks very much.
Pleasure, Greg. Always a pleasure.
Take care.